Hi guys! Nowadays that we have LLMs almost everywhere and they want to extend their capability by connecting to other tools and other available data sources, we requires a protocol that can do this process in a way that is consistent. So there are two common methods. One of them is MCP and then the other one is gRPC. We have talked about MCP a lot in this channel. In this video, we're gonna focus on the differences between these two approaches and when to use what. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Welcome everyone to your channel, AI Fun Fact for All. For those of you who are new to this channel, my name is Pedram. I have a PhD in computer science, and in this channel we talk about AI and machine learning and how we can use it in order to improve our efficiency. As I said, there are different ways that the LLM want to communicate with other applications. For example, if you have an agent for booking the travel, you want to connect to other APIs, for example, booking the hotel, searching and finding the relevant activities. But obviously, LLM, in order to show its utmost capability, needs to act as an agent, which means not only provide the response and reasoning, also need to do action. And for action, we need to basically call the different APIs or get specific resources. And the reason is the LLM have a limited context window, and also the information are limited to their offline dataset. But in reality, when we want to have a useful agent, we might require some information that the knowledge does not exist in the parameters or basically inside the context window. So what we do is that, let's say you want to get access to the customer data, so you want to connect to the CRM to get the latest information about the customer and try to provide the response that are basically tailored to that specific customer. In order to get to a point that LLM can generate the response in a consistent manner, developer need to come up with some common protocols. So why the common protocols are actually important? Because we want to consistently and reliably generate those LLM calls that can make the full automation possible. There are basically two common protocols. The first one is MCP. We already have talked about it a lot in this channel, Model Context Protocol, and which was basically introduced by Anthropic in late 2022. And then we also have gRPC. This is basically a very older one that was introduced by Google. It's basically Google Remote Procedure Call, and it was not purposeful for LLM. It was developed for basically high throughput and then provide the response as fast as possible and enable streaming and so on. But MCP specifically was designed for LLM. So we will talk quickly right now what do we mean by specifically for LLM. So what does MCP have under the hood is basically the tools. So the tools are basically a list of definitions for the available resources. So for example, they can call tools list and then it will return a list of tools and a definition of how they can be used. For example, it can be like a get weather, and basically in the definition it says that use this if you want to get the latest information about the weather and so on. And then we have basically the different resources. So the resources are basically the databases and any information proprietary data. And then finally we have the prompts. So the prompts are the information or instruction on how to basically use and basically provide the final response. But everything, as you can see in here, are built on top of basically runtime discovery. So the whole point of this is that we don't need to run this and then whatever happens into our tools, or if they change, we don't need to update it. It will be automatically updated, and it will look at LLM, look at the resources and try to see that which one needs to be called. But on the flip side, we have gRPC, which is basically a procedure buffer, which basically by the buffer they want to facilitate the connection, and then they will try to build a connection by HTTP2 that enable the fast bidirectional streaming. So bidirectional streaming means that you can have multiple requests, and you won't be blocked by the response of one, and also it have the code generation, which basically means that you can get access to the underlying APIs. But obviously what is missing in here is all of these are the functional code and the APIs itself. What is missing is obviously AI translation, because otherwise this is kind of would look too much abstract. And for that specific reason, gRPC are basically designed to create very fast and multiple connections at the same time. However, MCP are designed to enable LLMs to discover the tools that are available, but obviously it's not for very fast communication and basically the streaming. Now, let's quickly take a look and see how the MCP connection is working. So we have a host that's basically the user, and then we have MCP client, that's the one that is making the connection, and then it will basically connect to the MCP servers that have access to all of the resources. That can be our databases, that can be the different APIs, that can be accessing to a specific file, and so on. So all of this connection is available on the MCP server, and then they also provide some functionalities such as the tool/list. They can provide resources/list and also prompt/list. So how it works is that this connection will happen through a JSON-RPC, JSON 2.0, which is basically completely text-based. And you can imagine that this JSON is not necessarily the best and the fastest way to communicate, but obviously the best and most reliable for an LLM that is text-based, is readable for human and the LLM. But on the flip side, if you want to talk about the gRPC, if you want to have an AI agent specifically, the gRPC works is that it have obviously a gRPC client, and then after that it will create a HTTP2 protocol buffer, and then by buffer, which means that it enable the fast connection, and then it has gRPC services, and then obviously the services again can be the different databases, the data, and accessing the file. So all of the functionality can also happen in here, but the only difference that I want to emphasize in here is that the AI agent cannot directly connect to the gRPC client, and the reason for that is that one doesn't provide a very good description of what this for example a specific method does. So for that we need an adapter layer. So how it works is that AI agent will actually work on the adapter layer, which try to translate and provide the text description for the gRPC client, and then that one will actually establish the HTTP2 connection to the services, and then they will provide the response back to us. So obviously what we can see from this comparison is that The protocol buffer is basically a binary communication, so obviously a lot faster, a lot more reliable. However, on the same flip side, we have the text-based method. So the gRPC JSON is basically something like, for example, method, and then inside the method you're gonna say, for example, get weather, but then you also have the params, for example, okay, like for San Francisco City, right? So for this obvious case, we have a lot of overhead and so many extra parameters. It's good for the LLM to understand, but obviously not ideal when you want to have a very fast communication. However, for here, when we are using the protocol buffer, it is completely binary, and then as the communication are binary, they are very fast, and then they are over HTTP2 connection, which means that they can enable the streaming and faster communications. And there you have it, guys. We went over gRPC versus MCP protocol. We have discussed and mentioned that MCP are purpose-built for LLM. In some cases that you have an chatbot that is going to work for few customers, like for example 10 to 20 customers at the same time, the overhead is not gonna show itself, and then you're not gonna the user's not gonna experience that much of bad results because of the blocking of the servers, because they have to get the response and then a response back, and then they also have to communicate through text-based communication. However, they are designed for the LLM in mind, so basically they can facilitate the self-discovery, they can facilitate communication to the LLM by design, that provide the responses and the descriptions of what are the availables to make it completely possible. On the other side, we have gRPC that are designed for fast and reliable and multiplexing, which is basically multiple response at the same time, and also a streaming, which means that you can wait for the response to get it back, and all of this is available by design in gRPC. But obviously they need to have an adapter layer which basically converts those communication to something that an LLM can understand, something like a description or whatever, like a wrapper, and then they will handle all of the operation with the binary and HTTP2 very fast and reliable. So in the cases that you have thousands of communication and channel at the same time, then obviously you cannot go with the MCP, and your only solution is going to be gRPC. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like it, and more importantly, subscribe to the channel so you get the other videos that will come up in this channel. If you want to get more information about MCP, make sure to watch this video that I created before, or you can watch this one that I talk about A2A or agent to agent communication recently by Google, to feel more how the agents can actually talk to each other. Thanks for watching, and see you until the next one.